Hey, this is Doc Yates. I'm a naturopathic doctor, registered acupuncturist, and a kinesiologist, owner of the Yates Naturopathic Clinic, and the founder of the interactive health website, Able Health. And this is the Simply Health Podcast, a show for females where I work to simplify and demystify the secrets of achieving optimal health naturally, based on my own experience in working with thousands of female patients over the past 15 years of my clinical practice. Welcome to Simply Health. Hey, this is Doc Yates, and thanks for joining me on the drive today on the Simply Health Podcast, brought to you by Able Health. Today we are discussing, last podcast and last episode we were talking about how to prevent losing your gallbladder, how to maintain gallbladder health as you're going through menopause and perimenopause. Today we're talking about what to do if you had heard that podcast too late, you've already had your gallbladder removed, and now what can you do to improve your health and maintain your health without your gallbladder? Because typically, for most mainstream medicine, is that removing your gallbladder is the treatment. And then, therefore, the treatment is now done. So if there's any problems after, they've already done the treatment. That's remove your gallbladder, and then you're kind of like, they'll wash your hands of you at that point, unfortunately. So a lot of times when people go in to get their gallbladder removed, afterwards, and this is obvious, but it's worth stating because it's always one of three scenarios. Some people, they get their gallbladder removed, everything's better, all their symptoms are gone, they feel better, boom, off to the races, they feel normal again. That's not as frequent though. A lot of times, sometimes people get their gallbladder removed, but yet they feel the exact same, which is strange. They still have the same symptoms, the same discomfort, the same digestive issues, even though they've had their gallbladder removed. And other people sometimes didn't really have any symptoms, and they get their gallbladder removed because something's found on like an ultrasound, and then they just feel worse after. So what I want to discuss is that if you have no gallbladder, what are things that you can do to improve your digestive health and your health overall, because this, like every organ in your body, though you can live without it, doesn't mean that it doesn't serve its purpose. And as I mentioned in the last podcast, the gallbladder stores bile, and then when you eat a fattier meal, it releases this bile in larger amounts so that you can digest those fats, absorb those nutrients, and get that benefit. I also mentioned that bile is a natural bowel irritant and a laxative. So what's happening now that you don't have your gallbladder is, instead of the bile being stored up and then released when you're having more fat in a meal, you have this constant trickle of bile, this bowel irritant, this laxative hitting your intestinal tract. And for some people, it leads to chronic irritation, sometimes symptoms that sometimes people would put to their stomach. They say, oh, I have gastritis, but it's because of this constant drip of bile affecting your intestinal tract. That's something we need to discuss. So what we're going to talk about 4 key things you can do that if you're living without a gallbladder now to improve your health. The first one they should have already told you, and that is lower fat meals. As much as I'm not a proponent of low fat diets, once you have your gallbladder removed, eating a really high fat meal is going to make you feel disgusting, because you won't be able to digest all of those fats coming in one big hit because you don't have any stored up bile acids. And by not being able to digest the fats will typically go right through you and leave a lot of irritation, cramping, and loose stools. So you want to focus on getting the healthy fats that you can. So as many healthy fats in small, more frequent amounts might be a better idea. Which takes us to point number 2. How can we make it so that when you are consuming these fats, you are breaking them down better and absorbing them better? And the answer to that is called bile acids. So you can actually buy encapsulated bile. It's usually ox bile, or you can buy specifically the bile acids. And these are any health food store would have these. And if you're eating a meal that is heavier, has more fats in it, you would want to take a few of these ox bile tablets or capsules along with it, and that will help your body by basically giving a little extra hit of this bile that you can't release in larger amounts at once, will help you digest those meals. Sometimes too, you can find these where they're combined with digestive enzymes. And this is not a bad idea because sometimes the release of bile can help trigger more enzymes. And if you're not getting that trigger, and if the bowel is already irritated because of that constant drip of bile, maybe you're not getting as many digestive enzymes released at the same time. So if you can find a combination where it's bile acids and digestive enzymes, and you take that with any time you're having a heavier meal with more fats or more proteins, I think that would be a very good idea. And generally speaking, what I have people do is take one bottle, leave it at home, and then take another bottle and leave it in your purse. So that way if you're out and about, say you're at a business meeting or a luncheon, and that's all the only options that you have to eat, you could still eat without having a lot of digestive upset and ruining your day. So pick up some bile acids and digestive enzymes. Number 3, demulcents. So what demulcents are, these are typically herbal extracts that have a soothing effect on your intestinal tract. So ones that you might have heard of before would be like marshmallow root extract, slippery elm powder. There's something called DGL licorice extract, and this is a licorice extract that still gives you all the benefits of the anti-inflammatory effect of the licorice for your intestinal tract, but it doesn't, like some licorice extracts that can increase your blood pressure if you take way too much, this one won't. So you might want to mark this down. And you can get each one of these as chewable tablets. But I would definitely make this suggestion. So you're going to look for either marshmallow root chewable tablets, slippery elm chewable tablets, or DGL chewable tablets. Some of these are sweetened with something called xylitol. And while xylitol is typically not bad for you, for a lot of people, if you take too much of it, it also will act as a laxative, and the last thing that you need generally when you're dealing with this is even more laxatives added into your diet and even more bowel irritants. So if you could find one that's sweetened with stevia or monk fruit instead, and there's no sugar alcohols like xylitol or erythritol or any of those, and basically a sweetener that ends with OL, if you can leave those out, and then you can focus just on the actual herbal extract itself, like the slippery elm, one more time, slippery elm, marshmallow root extract, or DGL licorice. Focus on those. That means that every time you take those in, and if you're using those between meals, so these are things you'd want to use between meals, so that it's kind of coating your intestinal tract and reducing that irritation from this constant drip of bile that you're getting between meals as well, where no one else is. So that is something that you would want to consider. And again, one more thing to kind of leave in your purse. Generally speaking, when it comes to when you're working with digestive health, there's things that you're going to do like before the meal or with the meal, and then there's a separate thing you're going to do after the meal. And even when you look at a lot of traditional diets, like for instance, they would have those drinks, and you can see them now if you go to the liquor store. They'll have something called a digestif and an aperitif. And these are drinks where one has a little bit more bitter and it stimulates your gallbladder and your liver, and then there's a sweeter drink that they would have after. So imagine like Jaeger would be something that you take before, and then that would be like an aperitif, and then you'd have a digestif after, and that would be a sweeter drink. Say an example would be like Zambuca or something like that, where it's that anise flavor. Those are all traditional drinks based around digestion. Now they're usually more used for like Jaeger bombs and different purposes, but traditionally those drinks were to improve and work with digestion. So that was the demulcents. The fourth point that you want to consider, so 4 out of 4 for today, is fat-soluble vitamins. It would probably be a very good idea, knowing that anytime you're eating fattier meals, which is where you're getting your fat-soluble vitamins from, you want to make sure that you're digesting those better. So adding in a few fat-soluble vitamins like vitamin A, vitamin D, vitamin E would be a very good idea. So consider supplementing with those, knowing that when you probably won't be absorbing them from food as well as you were before. Now you might be thinking, oh man, there's no hope because you've had this structural change and it's a permanent change to your body. And that part is true, that it is a permanent change. But with knowing this and knowing these little tweaks and hacks that you can do to improve your digestion, to give yourself some kind of backup when you're going out for meals and you don't have as much control over what you're eating, or there's nothing else being served. These are all things that you can do so that you're not going to get these side effects from having this procedure. Obviously, if we could have done something before to prevent the procedure, that would have been better, but no point looking back now. The other thing that I think is really important, at the beginning of the podcast, I said some people feel better from getting this and some people feel the same. Even if you felt better from this procedure, it might mean that, you don't need the bile acids, maybe you don't need the demulcents, but it still doesn't necessarily mean that your absorption for fat-soluble vitamins will be as good. So even if you don't have that bowel irritation, it doesn't mean that you're breaking down fats and fat-soluble vitamins as the same you were before, because we know that you still can't be releasing bile the same way. So even if you don't have any symptoms at all, and you feel so much better since you've had that procedure, that makes me glad that you're feeling good. But long term, you would still want to consider adding these vitamin A, D, and E. Consider adding those to your diet, and even if it's a low dose form supplement. And there's a lot more information we can discuss about what are the best forms of those vitamins, but those are the ones you want to consider. So I hope this information was helpful for those of you who have already had your gallbladder removed and you're looking for ways to improve your health despite not having your gallbladder anymore. So this is Doc Yates signing off. Thanks for tuning in to Simply Health. If you want to learn more about health, check out Able Health. If you want to see some of the other projects that I've been working on in health, business, music, and life, please check out the links below.